Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Pen Vicarage on this lovely Friday morning. Great to see you, and so glad you could join us for our Bible talk this morning. While I'm talking about joining us, don't forget this weekend we have a full branch of service at St Bart's and Stands, 5:30 on Saturday evening, informal communion service. Sunday morning, 8 o'clock, book on prayer. Main Eucharist, 10 o'clock Sunday morning. And then, of course, at St Anne's, 11:45 too. And in the evening at St Bart's at 5:30 Sunday evening, we've got the farewell service to our dear friend Philip Swan on his retirement. We've got the bishop coming, the band coming, and various things. If you'd like to join us, you're very, very welcome. And the St Anne's service, the 10 o'clock, and the evening service for Philip Swan are all going to be live streamed. And you're very, very welcome to join us. Whether you're in person, we'd love to see you. Online, we'd love to see you. Come and join us. Great to worship with you, with us this weekend. My friends, as you know, we are on our way through the Gospel of Mark. And the context so far, Jesus has just begun his public ministry. He's in a place called Capernaum, just by the Sea of Galilee. And yesterday's reading, he'd been in the synagogue on the Sabbath. He'd been preaching, speaking, and everyone had talked about the amazing, had been struck by his amazing authority of his teaching. He'd also healed a man with an unclean spirit in the synagogue as well. And here we pick up after the service is finished. Here we go. Mark's Gospel, chapter 1, starting to read at verse 29. As soon as they left the synagogue, they entered the house of Simon and Andrew with James and John. Now Simon's mother-in-law was in a bed with a fever, and they told him about her at once. He came and took her by the hand and lifted her up. Then the fever left her, and she began to serve them. That evening at sundown, they were brought to him all who were sick and possessed with demons. And the whole city was gathered around the door. And he cured many who were sick with various diseases and cast out many demons. And he would not permit the demons to speak because they knew him. In the morning, while it was still very dark, he got up and went out to a deserted place, and there he prayed. And Simon and his companions hunted for him. When they found him, they said to him, "Everyone's searching for you." He answered, "Let's go on to the neighbouring towns, so I may proclaim the message there also, for that's what I've come out to do." And he went throughout Galilee, proclaiming the message in their synagogues and casting out demons. A leper came to him, begging him, and kneeling, he said to him, "If you choose, you can make me clean." Moved with pity, Jesus stretched out his hand and touched him, and said to him, "I do choose, be made clean." Immediately the leprosy left him, and he was made clean. After sternly warning him, he sent him away at once, saying to him, "See that you say nothing to anyone, but go, show yourself to the priest, and offer for your cleansing what Moses commanded as a testimony to them." But he went out and began to proclaim it freely, and to spread the word, so that Jesus could no longer go into a town openly, but stayed out in the country, and people came to him from every quarter. And this is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. First little interesting thing to note for you, it is thought that Mark was a friend of Peter's, and therefore much of what Mark said was Peter's memories were hammed. And not surprising, the day that Jesus healed Peter's mother-in-law, I'm sure it was a fairly important day in the life of the family Peter, you might say. But anyway, that's just illustrates that point. Three things, I think, from this reading today. I mean, I could say so much more. Firstly, again, picking up on yesterday's theme of the authority of Jesus. Yesterday, we had Jesus having authority in his teaching. They were all struck by his teaching. We also had Jesus having authority over an unclean spirit. Straight after this, you have also Jesus having authority later in the day over all sorts of other diseases too. So we've got authority over teaching, we've got authority over unclean spirits, we've got authority over a disease with Peter's mother-in-law. Later on in the day, because after the Sabbath had finished, lots of people to take problems in an accident, lots of diseases, you might say, so lots of sicknesses. You've also got his authority over leprosy, over uncleanness, and so on. What I think Mark wants us to see is the awesomeness of Jesus, that Jesus is King of Kings, really. I think he wants us to see that Jesus has authority over all things, that he is the Holy One of God, that he is the main man. I think what Mark wants us to see is that Jesus has authority over his teaching, over unclean spirits, over other unclean diseases like leprosy, over sickness, and all these things. I think what Mark wants us to see, and what we can learn, is that Jesus is King, that Jesus is Lord, that Jesus really is the main man. And I think all through this reading here, we have Jesus doing his amazing thing. Not for not to try to go, he's doing all these things to make the point that he really is the main man. He's doing things that only God can do. That he has authority over, as I say, teaching unclean spirits, sicknesses, and lots of sicknesses, and all that type of stuff. So we're supposed to go, wow, look at this amazing person, Jesus. That's what we're supposed to see. That he really is God's main man. The second thing I think is this, which we can learn from, which is that Jesus had had a hard, he'd been preaching in the synagogue on the Sabbath morning. Then he'd healed Peter's mother-in-law. Then he'd healed lots of sick people. The whole city came out to him for Capernaum. He'd had a hard day. I mean, Jesus had a hard day's work there. And yet, you hear in verse 35 that early in the morning, while it was still very dark, Jesus is up there praying. And I think it's really important that we learn from that, actually, that we learn from his example that we need to keep straight with God, that we need to keep close to God all the time. Things are actually going well for Jesus in lots of ways here. The whole city's come to see he's clearly becoming a very, very popular man. And yet Jesus still knows the importance of spending time with God the Father. He even early in the morning, even when he's still very busy, even when things are going very, very well, he takes time to recenter his life in God. And I think, as I say, we can learn from that too, actually, that when things are going well as when things are not going so well, we need to keep close to God. We tend to often turn to God when things are not going well for us, or when we're having a crisis in life or whatever. I mean, what I think this tells us, is the importance of turning to God when things are going right too. Often our faith is most in danger when things are going well for us, because I think we get full of ourselves or whatever. And here's Jesus right in the middle of the beginning of his ministry, and things are going really well so far, but he still takes the time to recenter his life in God. That's the second thing. I think the third thing is this incident with the man with leprosy. It's interesting, it says here that Jesus was moved with pity. Apparently that's a mistranslation. Apparently Jesus was really angry when this turned up. We're not quite sure why Jesus was angry. It could be because he was tired. It could be because he was really upset about what leprosy was doing to this poor man, and he was so full of pity and compassion, you might say. He was actually angry about what the disease, what the devil had done to this poor person, and so on. So for whatever reason, Jesus was angry, and actually, when eventually he sends him off, when it says he sternly warned him, apparently the Greek word is like that for a snorting horse. And when he sent him away, the word is ekbalo, which is the word you might use to throw a ball out of the window. It's really quite strong words. But what we don't know why Jesus felt like this way. But what we do know is that Jesus did, despite that, show extraordinary compassion on this man with leprosy. In those days, if you caught leprosy, you became unclean. The Bible was talking about social distancing thousands of years before the government thought they'd thought of it. And actually, because if leprosy was an extremely contagious disease, and it was a killer, and people had to separate themselves. And what does Jesus do? This man with leprosy, this poor man, comes to Jesus and he begs him, and Jesus touches him. And that was an incredible thing to do. He touched this man with this unclean disease. He touched him and he made him better. And Jesus was prepared to touch, you might say, the untouchable. Jesus showed, however upset he may have been at the time, or however much, having all these people coming to him might have been distracting him from his ministry. However much eventually this man may have made things difficult for Jesus by telling everyone so Jesus couldn't walk around freely as he had done before, or whatever it may be. We don't know why. What we do know is that Jesus actually cared about this man so much that he touched him. He was prepared to touch somebody who was untouchable. That's Jesus' love, and that's Jesus' compassion. And I really believe that today, Jesus also has compassion on the untouchable today. And I believe, and I know as a church, we should also have compassion on the untouchable too. That we should care about people that other people don't care about. That we should help people who other people don't want to help, or whatever it will be. And I believe that we should, in our lives, we should show the compassion that Jesus showed, and enjoy the compassion he has on us too. So, a fascinating reading with lots to say here, all sorts of things to say. Firstly, let's remember the lordship of Jesus, that he has power over teaching, unclean spirit, sicknesses, lots of sicknesses, unclean diseases. Jesus is Lord. That's the first thing we can say. Second thing we could say is that Jesus shows the importance of keeping our lives centered in prayer, of keeping our lives close to God when things are going well as when things are difficult. But also let's reflect today on the incredible compassion of Jesus on this man. And, he was prepared to touch the untouchable. And he does today, and so should we. God bless you. Have a lovely day. And if I hope I don't see you over the weekend, have a lovely weekend. I'll be back for more talk.